I have something very good to talk about.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. You'll just have to wait to find out.
What do we have over here?
Zach?
What do we have over
A black silk. Bum, bum. Casi encontré un mar de escombros. Escombros, ¿qué es eso?
Okay.
Rubble.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, good morning. We're getting ready to begin. Approximately. Indeed. This needs to go. Delete that shot. Delete. Ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum. 25 people. I also moved the mic back here because I saw our video yesterday, and it sounded pretty distant.
Oh, okay.
So
Great. Well, now that we're not blocking the fireplace anymore anyway.
Right.
Okay. So it sounds like we got sound. That's good.
It does indeed.
Well, welcome, everybody. Hope you've had a great morning thus far.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got any questions for us, let us know. We'll try to address them as we can get to them. So go ahead and get those questions in the questions, comments, suggestions, all those things. You can feel free to put those right there in the comments. And then this one needs to be on your channel.
On our channel.
Ah! Don't want that.
Are we checking to see if it's on the YouTubes?
Yes. Because it's the darndest thing. It does not register. I have to really. It's weird. It's weird.
He has not prayed enough novenas to the YouTube gods, and they're angry at him.
All right. Well, I need my charger.
You know that phrase in sacred scripture? It is not sacrifice but obedience that the Lord desires. With the YouTube gods, it is sacrifice they desire. Mm-hmm. That is how you know that they are false gods. Yet somehow they have power.
We'll all get charged in a second. We gotta get started. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
I'm gonna take my little flash screen off. So there we go. Welcome to our fireside chat for Thursday. What are we on? April 23rd.
April 23rd is the feast of Saint George.
George,
isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's what my little breviary said this morning.
Mm-hmm.
How y'all doing?
Morning, Lori. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Donna, Danny, Lisa, Willard, and my dad. Willard. Mm-hmm.
I'm not making fun of your dad's name. I'm making fun of the way that you were talking about. You referred to him as Willard.
Well, he came up as Willard.
That's
his name.
I know. Yes, sorry. Well, welcome. Hope you're all doing well. What you been doing? What you been keeping yourself busy with, or not busy with, or been watching, reading? Today we are drinking once again. Sorry for the unoriginality for the day. I had to go to the grocery store yesterday, but I forgot to pick up more coffee. So we have Folgers Black Silk once again. Today I'm drinking out of Chewbacca cup, so it's kind of a Star Wars theme going on recently.
Look at that.
Yeah, so
Chewbacca.
it's just his eyes are
That's a
appearing.
very menacing looking Chewbacca, isn't it?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
That Chewbacca is not a happy Chewbacca.
Not a happy Chewbacca.
Not a happy Wookiee, I say.
Oh, you little happy Wookiee. You're
Exactly.
not an upset Wookiee. Very good. Yes, Aldebert.
St. Aldebert?
It is. Says Millie.
Wow.
I forget what Aldebert does.
Is it Albert or Aldebert?
Aldebert.
St. Aldebert. I don't know St. Aldebert.
Saint Aldebert. I do not know.
Oh, he's a medieval monk, isn't he?
Yes. If I were a betting man, I would say yes.
I've heard of St. Aldebert. I know nothing about him though. He was a bishop of Prague. That's wrong then. I was wrong. We'll see. I don't really know. Well,
it's funny because I do joke when I don't know a saint. I just say, I guess, he's either in the 1500s or the 1200s, because most of our saints in the breviary, it seems like it's someone from the 1500s or someone from the 1200s.
Well, you know why that would be, right?
They'd
They'd be with the Catholic Reformation.
Sure, yeah.
So
standing up to
exactly.
Catholic. Yep.
So the 1500s.
Yep.
Contrary during that time to the Protestant Reformation, along with the reforms that we had just been needing to do for a long time.
Yeah.
And then the 12th century would be the 11th century to the 12th century would be the Gregorian reforms.
Right.
So the reforms under Gregory the Seventh. I was ordained on the feast day of St. Gregory the Seventh, and so I feel a connection to him.
I see. Very good.
But Gregory the Seventh is an incredible reforming pope, and a lot of what the church looks like today is due to him and due to Lateran IV, which was coming later, totally grant, but during that period of what we identify as normal Catholic life, a lot of time, many times comes out of that 12th century.
Very good.
Because of the reforms that occurred in the church at that point.
Very good. However, it does feel a little bit like when you're watching like the baseball all-star game or whatever, and they introduce like 7 Yankees and 1 Royal and 1 A's player or something. It's like, let's get a little bit of variety here on this team. But anyway, yes, but that makes sense because those were times of great heroism in the Catholic Church, and so it's not surprising that we have some saints there. You said you had something great to talk about, right?
I did, but Deneen wants a shout out before we go.
Oh, shout out.
Yes, a big shout out for the Good Shepherd Food Kitchen crew, especially Marsha and Ruth for providing over 700 lunches Tuesday.
That is amazing. What is our normal number? Is it like 432 or something like that?
Something like that.
So it would not quite double, but nearly double. Is that what it was? Or maybe we're normally 350. I don't remember what our normal numbers are. But if you want to post our normal numbers, that would be helpful.
Well, our parish has been doing a marvelous job responding to the needs of the people at this point. So I think we were talking about this in the meeting yesterday that we had with the parish staff. And Mary Mueller mentioned that people are responding very generously. We had the food drive. What?
Yeah, carry on. I'm just looking at the microphone. Carry on.
Oh, okay. We had the food drive last
Easter Saturday.
Easter Saturday.
Or
exactly.
Holy Saturday.
Holy Saturday, yeah. Easter Saturday, Holy Saturday. And we have this food drive yesterday, or the food kitchen on Tuesday, pardon me, and people's responses have been fantastic for it. I think we gathered how many cookies on Sunday? Something like thousands of cookies.
Yeah, I got an email about that too. I can look that up, but it's amazing. I think something came up in one of our meetings yesterday that people I had several Zooms yesterday. It felt like they were good, but someone was mentioning people need stuff to do, like outreach, and it's a little bit hard to outreach while we're staying in place, sheltering in place. But I think there is a longing for things for people to do, and to I mean, people are enjoying the Zooming and stuff and these opportunities that we have, but there is some more outreach that I think that. So if you got any ideas of how we can do that while staying in place or doing some sort of drive-through or something, let us know, because we are trying to think of everything we can, but I need more brain power. Yeah. You are internally chuckling at something.
I'm just thinking. I'm proud of our people. What can
yes.
I say?
Yes. Indeed.
So, Father Kent.
Yes. Yeah.
What?
Father Ashmore.
Have you ever noticed that birds love to hang out on phone and electrical lines?
Yes.
Do you think that's normal? Do you think it's of the nature of a bird to hang out on an electrical line?
I think it's their nature to hang out on a tree limb.
But not electrical lines?
They are.
Do you think they have? What I'm asking is, do you think they have some ulterior motive?
No, I do not. I've never thought of that. What do you got going on in your brain over there?
So I came across a Twitter feed the other day,
so to speak,
a Twitter account, and a website, and it was
about
called
birds. They're tweeting about birds.
Yes.
An actual tweet. A bird tweet.
It's true. It's true. But the problem is, it was titled "Birds Aren't Real."
Okay.
BirdsAren'tReal.com and Birds Aren't Real on Twitter, and they have this really fascinating account, and I'm starting to believe it. They believe that between 1971 and 2001, the U.S. government had a bird genocide and killed out all the birds and replaced them with robots. And that's why they all hang out on electrical lines.
Because they're recharging?
Because they're recharging. So they're putting billboards throughout the United States. I'm not joking. That just say, birds aren't real. You can buy t-shirts that say, birds aren't real. Join the revolution. Become woke. Birds aren't real.
You heard it here first, folks, on Fireside Chat. Birds aren't real.
Exactly.
We should purchase some shirts.
We should.
And wear that for the show.
I never have thought about it before, but it makes perfect sense. Birds are always hanging around. Mm-hmm. The U.S. government loves to surveil its people, and so...
So they're sending out the birds.
Have you ever... Remember that bird that was popping up on our window for months at a time?
That's true.
Exactly. We had a bird.
Oh, it's right.
Oh. Every morning when we'd be praying, he'd be coming and he'd be hitting the window.
Surveillance.
Mm-hmm. Watching us.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes birds may, one might call it like bomb people, certainly. And it's the U.S. government enforcing and showing us that we need to stay in our place. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
So was that
birdsaren'treal.com?
Birdsaren'treal.com. Well, I'll have to look that up. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. Somebody interviewed them online, and the person that was interviewing the one of the leaders of the Birds Aren't Real movement said, "So is this satire?" And the person looked at him and went, "I find that offensive."
Well, if I were a betting man on what we would talk about to open up our fireside chat today, it would take me a long time to get to birdsaren'treal.com. But there you go. You heard it here first, folks. Birdsaren'treal.com. Join the revolution, or not.
Become woke.
Become woke. Very good. So what else are you guys? What else are you working on besides birds not being real? Let us know in the comments.
I'm just trying to figure out what other animals are in on this.
Squirrels?
Squirrels.
Squirrels are everywhere.
They're always everywhere. And I think I saw one malfunctioning in the tree the other day. It just came up onto a branch and just started like for like 10 minutes. And it had no reason to be doing that. Eventually it kind of shook off and went down the street. I think squirrels aren't real either. Like I think some squirrels are real. But I don't think all of them are real.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, if you kill a squirrel, or something, they're either really impressive robots, and the government is way farther advanced than we think,
right?
Or there are some real ones out there.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, there are real ones out there. But that's really the trick. Is that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's really the trick, to have a few real ones to throw everybody off. Mm-hmm. What about deer? Deer seem to come into the city randomly.
I think deer are real.
You think so?
Yeah.
Bambi, that's why, right?
Probably
Bambi. Okay. But you know what certainly isn't real? Possums. No animal should look like a possum. I'm sorry, we're going
What an incredibly interesting. Now, speaking of bizarre theories, there was a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, about the flat earthers.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was very fascinating. Almost
convincing.
It was interesting just to see, again, it's not convincing, but it was really interesting. The documentary, if I recall, I think it was on Netflix. I don't remember what it was called, but there was just this interesting movement, and they don't at least all come off as complete wackos, which we sometimes think, but some of them are, using science to defend their position. That it's not just like a bunch of look, it's in the Bible, therefore it's real, but They were saying it's all some big conspiracy, and they're not all wearing aluminum hats or anything. But it was an interesting documentary. So
yeah,
if you're looking for something to watch, I remember I think it was on Netflix.
I had a professor at one point who played with the idea that the Earth was the center of the universe, and so he would never say it. But he would always allude to the fact that, the math would work out perfectly. Because his whole point was, And I actually don't believe this. I'm just letting you know. I believe in the heliocentric view and the Copernican view. Don't worry, I'm not some nut job here. But he would just...
I mean, I might be a nut job, but I don't believe in that either. But
Right.
go ahead.
He would always allude to the fact, and he at one point he talked to us and he said, if you do the math perfectly, the geocentric universe works out.
Interesting.
But it's all about the math. So one day we may believe this. If we may return to this and see that the math was right all along. And he never really went into more of that. And he always kind of put it out there as something, if you want to talk to me more about this, we can talk more about it. But then he would teach about the heliocentric universe.
Uh-huh.
It was very strange.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
My
Father Ashmore. I see a YouTube link. Birds on wires. When birds become the notes of a melody. Huh. I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, you see they're communicating to each other. Do you see that? There's birds on wires there. It looks like music. It looks like music.
Wait, let me see here. Go back.
Go back.
You go back to that one. Where are you going to go? We can go to the ash cam?
Mm-hmm. Ash
Okay, I'm going to go to the ash cam. Yeah, that's good.
You see the birds there?
Now they do.
It looks like music. I bet it's Morse code, though. I bet it's Morse code.
I bet you might be right.
Mm-hmm. They are communicating with the Russian government. Mm-hmm.
So there you go. My sister says we ain't eating fake deer. That's what she says. So
okay.
But
the ones that you shot.
Anyway, let's move on, shall we?
I love conspiracy theories because they're always so convincing.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard the one about the Denver airport being being constructed by some, or is it the Illuminati? That's who it is. Denver airport. That if you look at it just right, it almost looks like it's in the shape of a swastika.
The which one was?
The Denver airport.
Oh.
If you look at it just right with the
Uh-huh.
air, it almost looks like it's shaped in a swastika, and there's like this, there was this statue at one point of it that's dedicated to the world, New World Order or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And there's no such thing as a New World Order, and so these conspiracy theories are great.
Very good. I like this bird falling over here in the comments here. Squirrels are spies. Father Sean says, thinking that only nut jobs reject the heliocentric theory is a logical fallacy.
It's true. It is true.
So
what theories do you guys believe? Do you guys think we went to the moon? What? I don't get it.
That's another theory, yes, that people talk about that.
You are laughing. What are you laughing at?
Well, I'm laughing at that, and then it says no more coffee for Father Ashmore. Yes. Well. Anyway, that was fun. Good.
I told you it'd be fun.
You're right. Very interesting. So, what other questions do you have besides these crazy conspiracy theories?
Or if you have,
that
it's
are,
okay too.
that are yeah. But yeah, they are interesting. I always find it interesting, just generally, is I find fascinating what other people find fascinating. And I just find it interesting to see what people spend their lives on, or what they have their hobbies with. At Our Lady of Unity, at my previous parish, they had a car show. Mm-hmm. We started that in like 2013 or 14, and so it was an annual thing, and so I have been to exactly 4 or 5 exactly. Mm-hmm. I've been to as many car shows as Our Lady of Unity had car shows while I was pastor. I have never been to any other car show. Mm-hmm. But it was really interesting for me to see what other people find very interesting. I have about zero interest in cars myself, but I do have interest in other people having interest in the cars, and and so I had to judge a car each
You know what's
year.
interesting? I'm interested in the fact that you're interested in other people being interested in cars.
Very good. Well, hopefully some other people are too. But it was interesting for me because I had to do the pastor's pick every year, and I'm like, I don't know. So it has a cylinder, a couple of cylinders, 6 of them, 8. How many cylinders does it have, and why can't they be cubes? But they were there, and so I had to judge these cars. And it was fun to walk around with one of the parishioners who was part of the co-host of the car shows, who does a whole bunch of these car shows, to give me some background. Well, this has this, and what speaks to you here about this car? Why does this respond to you? And kind of was helpful in guiding me in those kinds of things. That people spend a lot of time looking at the flat Earth or whatever, and really spend their math working that out or whatever, or I've mentioned before that I like board games, and I go to these board game conventions. Well, that's of no interest to some people, but that's something that I find interesting. Or people love quilting or crafting, or people go to these Native American flute festivals or whatever. And there's so many things that people do a good friend of mine's mom goes to, I think, is it North Dakota, Wyoming, or whatever, and she would go every summer to this Native American flute festival, and
that is fascinating.
Yeah, she played a little bit of flute, and so they came together. For a couple years, I went to the Winfield Music Festival, or the whatever that Walnut Valley Music Festival. It's sometimes called the Winfield Bluegrass Festival, but it's not in Winfield, and it's not exactly bluegrass, so it's a little bit of a misnomer. But it's the Walnut Valley Music Festival,
right?
And
it's like the church circus that I have every morning. That's in the rectory and not a circus. It's me just having coffee.
You've had a lot of coffee this morning, brother. But going to that festival, and people had the custom of going there for years. I just find all that really interesting to see how people spend their time and how people use their free time. I just find that very interesting, and people get really captivated into these kinds of things. I find that to be interesting.
There is nothing more enjoyable to me than talking to somebody about something they find fascinating. And I think that's one of the best things that we can do is, look at that, I'm getting all sorts of laughing emojis. One of the best things you can do when you're talking to somebody you don't know, or when you're trying to just if you're working the room or anything, is find out what that person is interested in and then have a conversation with that person. Yeah. And they will automatically feel like you care about them. Right. Now, I'm not saying you don't care about them, but you can communicate that really soon if you discover, oh, this person loves cards. What kind of cards do you like to play? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then make a connection over that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. You're speaking about cars. My dad and I used to work on cars growing up. Mm-hmm. And my dad was not super into cars, but he enjoyed them. He's from Michigan, and so that was kind of part of the culture that he grew up in. And I have always really liked, because of that, old Volkswagens. I had my first car was a 1990 Volkswagen Jetta diesel, and it was a 5-speed manual transmission. It got 50 miles to the gallon and went 0 to 60 eventually. But it was a great little car. No air conditioning, no cruise control. I love that thing. I love that era of Volkswagens. They've got electrical issues. There's things I should not love about them, but I just find them fascinating. Huh. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. It is interesting, those ways that the things you grow up with can have an effect on you like that. Mm-hmm.
My first car was a Chevy Malibu, but I don't remember what year it was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we bought it from secondhand from someone else. And yeah. Well, before I get too far afield, I better say hi to my nieces before they turn the program off, because I haven't done that yet. So let me go to the camera. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Rosalie. Hello, Laura. How are you doing? How's the day going? Isn't this Father Ashmore guy, he's being really silly today, isn't he? I don't know what's going on, but he is being really silly. He's talking about birds and robots, and I don't know what's going on. What is going on with this guy? Crazy guy. But anyway, good to see you, and have a good day. Okay, bye. So, what else do we got here today? There are other questions that folks have. Multiple intelligences theory. I don't know what that is.
I'm not too familiar with it. I've heard of it. The idea that different people have different areas of intelligence, and that one person may be very oriented towards a particular type of knowledge versus another type of knowledge. So one person can do calculus extraordinarily well, but he has no capacity for car maintenance,
Uh-huh.
whereas another person can know cars really extraordinarily well but has no capacity for calculus. I think that's kind of what they're getting at, but I don't know too much about that theory in particular. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the multiverse, right? Where we're all living in there's all kinds of different realities going on, like with time travel and everything.
Perhaps. Tell me more.
Well, I always find those movies about time travel to be kind of fascinating, like the whole Star Trek, the new reboot of Star Trek, that there is an alternate universe going on.
Oh, really? I don't think I've seen the reboot ones.
Oh, they're really good? They're really good. I mean, I like Star Trek anyway. I'm not a huge Trekkie, but I like the series. I like the characters.
Mm-hmm.
But so that, about whatever that was, about 10, 12 years ago, they rebooted and they had the Star Trek with the original characters of Spock and Kirk and all those.
Mm-hmm.
But they were new actors and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it was brilliant. It was a brilliant move because there's a time travel element where the bad guy goes back in time to stop some action that happened, which sent off a series of events which gave like this alternate universe of what would have happened had this happened. Which the reason that was brilliant is because Trekkies are really particular about details and everything. Sure. And so if they did a reboot of Star Trek, they would have to make sure that everything stays in line with exactly how the series said it and with the movies. But what it did is they went back in time, adjusted this timeline, and so there's this alternate timeline going on with Kirk and Spock. And so even if their characters are different, that's okay. It gave them complete freedom to do whatever they want with those characters. It's also interesting. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the Star Trek, I'm giving a spoiler about the Star Trek movie.
It's about space.
Right.
That's a spoiler.
But Leonard Nimoy appears in the movie as the old Spock and basically says, this is your universe, you tell your story. So it was a brilliant movie-making technique by J.J. Abrams because in it he could appeal to everybody. It's like, you Star Trek people, you have your universe that is still intact. But this is the alternate universe of what could have happened. So anyway, I just find that fascinating.
That is fascinating. Huh.
But
that reminds me, talking about things that people are interested in.
I got some good things coming up in the chat about this multiple intelligence different theory.
Huh. Interesting.
Read those chat things.
Oh, fascinating.
If you, I'll have to look that up some more too. Good stuff there in the chat. Thank you.
So, what was I thinking? Oh, but you mentioned Star Trek.
Yes.
And my dad likes Star Trek, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that for a long, long time, and I always find that interesting. The things that you learn about our parents, or other people learn about their parents until later in their life. Because at one point I was having a conversation with my dad. I was doing theater. I think I was like 16, 17. I don't remember what show I was in, but I was just talking to him about that, and I made a comment to him along the lines of, well, I know you're not really interested in this. And he goes, what makes you think that? And I go, well, it's just not your thing. I'm just talking like an arrogant 16-year-old who thinks he knows everything. And he goes, I did, I was a technical director for a lot of shows when I was in college. And I was like, really?
Huh.
And he had never told me up until that point that he had done, he himself wasn't an actor or music or anything like that, but he did a lot of stage direction when he was in college. And I had no idea until it was later in life. And there's all sorts of things that we don't know about our parents that we just discover.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I discovered at my dad's funeral, we had a collection of pictures. And there was a picture of my dad and my mom when they went to a costume party, and my dad was, I don't remember what my mom was dressed up, but I was so amazed at my dad. He dressed up as Dracula, and his look on his face, I'm like, good Lord, that's my dad. It was amazing. It looked so good. But all the things we just don't know about our parents, and that just that was one of the beautiful things about funeral, and I think it is for a lot of families. You have a funeral today, and one of the things that I enjoy really most about priesthood is funerals and funeral prep, and mostly because I like hearing about the stories that the people share. So I almost always, 99% of the time, I meet with the family before the funeral, to talk about, what was this person like? Tell me about this person. What was this person's interests? Because I want to have all that in the background as I'm talking about the homily, because I want to make sure that the homily is not just, that it's personal. It relates to that person, to that family. So I try to listen and hear, what they're saying. But also what I find is that when families are talking about their loved ones, often people say, "Oh, I never knew that about dad or mom," or I never heard that story before, and that's really interesting. Or that's interesting that you heard it that way, but I heard it this way. And I usually just sit back and take notes, and I don't usually need to say much, and it can go on for 45 minutes, an hour and a half. And I just sit there and listen and take notes. And I usually think it's good for families, because if they haven't been given that opportunity just to talk about their loved ones, I want to make sure that I've given them that space to do that.
Yeah.
So I find that to be a very good and healing process, just to allow people to talk and share why they loved their loved one. That's sometimes an introductory question. I say, what did you love about this person? And then it usually just goes. So
it's always exciting to watch, to see how the conversation unfolds.
Uh-huh.
They'll tell a little story here, and it bounces off to another one.
Uh-huh.
It's a beautiful process. It really
is. It is. So getting to know people and getting to know their families, their interests.
And there can be a fear when you're working with somebody who is mourning. There can be a fear like, I don't want to make them go into these details. But they found in psychology, and particularly the psychology of mourning and grieving, that it's important to let people tell their story. It's important to do that, because that's one of the ways that our mind processes things. So if you know somebody who's grieving, I wouldn't be afraid of asking them. So even something as maybe shocking to us right now, but even somebody is saying, "So how'd you find out that he died?" Let them tell the story, because telling the story lets your mind reprocess it all, and it lets you understand it more, and then it lets you incorporate it within your own person. So it's not this thing that's disassociated with yourself.
Right. I had one funeral. So there've been a couple funerals where I've had that I didn't get to meet with the family or enough of the family beforehand. Just strange circumstances, like it happened really fast, or they couldn't get all together, or whatever. If there's one thing I hate about doing in ministry is coming into a funeral feeling like I'm really unprepared to understand the family situation that's going on at the time. That really makes me nervous, because people are real sensitive during that time, and I can really say something that is wrong. So there was one time several years ago, I had a funeral for somebody, and only one person was able to make this meeting.
Wow.
And so I was expecting more, but only one person came, and there was some sort of difficult dynamics going on in the family. So I was not certain that everything that I was receiving from that one person was actually real and reflected what the other members of the family felt about this, because there was some really what do they call it, disenfranchised, what's the word, not disowned, but just estranged
Okay.
elements in that family. And so so at the homily, I played it super safe. I just spoke in real general terms, because I was not sure of the data that I was receiving was actually reflective. And then at the burial, someone came up and said how upset they were because it was so impersonal and everything. And so they wanted to give, at the burial, they gave a kind of a eulogy or whatever at the burial, because to make up for my awful homily that was so impersonal. But I was like, I had nothing, because I didn't want to say what this person was saying, because I felt that I don't think that's reflecting necessarily what everyone else would say. So it's really important for me to have as broad of a response to that person as I can, because then that just gives a better understanding of that person. Which, like on a side note, is one of the reasons that I say that we have 4 Gospels, right? Because each of the evangelists had a different personal relationship with Jesus Christ in their interaction. And so to hear Matthew say something, and Luke and Mark and then John, all of them had a different interaction. They all tell the story of Jesus, but it's all through their lens of their relationship with Jesus. And so I find that helpful to think of, why don't we just have one gospel? It'd just be simpler. Just tell one story. We don't have these inconsistencies or whatever, or what seems to be, this guy says this road, this guy says this road. Well, what's going on? Well, to that person, that detail was not that important, perhaps, and so maybe they gloss over that detail, or they don't go into that as much as another person because that was really important to them. It's the same thing with a family dynamic. This piece was really important to this person, but that was not really all that important to that person. So having that broad understanding of who that person is helps me then to give a homily that hopefully speaks to the broader to who that person is as much as possible. Because generally I often laugh and I often show my cards saying that of all the people in the room, I knew this person the least, and I'm the one up here speaking about him, or her. So I try to take all that in. But the liturgy really does not call for a eulogy. I mean, that's, people sometimes want that and they expect that, well, a family member comes up and gives a eulogy. Well, it's not really Catholic tradition to do that. And so the priest is called upon to give a homily, and it's really meant to reflect upon the mystery of the it's supposed to focus on Jesus, but everyone's coming expecting to hear about the person. So it's that fine balance of how do you preach Jesus in a homily to people that don't want to hear about Jesus but want to hear about their loved one. It's always a fine balance to go through, but it needs to be personal. Otherwise, people get really upset. It's like, why did you just use a recycled resurrection thing for my family member? That family member deserves better, or whatever. So.
Certainly, and I think it's that whole explanation there is a bit of a microcosm to the poverty that we have in our American society when it comes to mourning. That we in the America do not mourn well. We don't have a process for mourning. We don't have a chance for families to together process the loss of a loved one, and so many people expect all the mourning or all their emotional needs to come and be satisfied in one event, the funeral.
Right.
And so it makes it impossible.
It does. And
it's really a poverty that we have in the American culture. You can look at every other culture in the world. There's a process for mourning. And I remember in some African cultures, the families make the coffins afterwards, and they decorate them according to the person's life. And other cultures, there's a lot more sadness going on. Or we know about the professional wailers in some societies, which seems ridiculous to us, to Americans, but even to some of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, that's a very real part of how they experience the mourning. That there's this whole outward expression of what's going on interiorly that lasts for several days, and that's a far more human way of mourning than it is trying to say, okay, let's put together this funeral, maybe we'll have a luncheon afterwards, and then I'm done. That doesn't recognize that mourning is a long process.
Right.
And
which is why we tend not to be too quick to jump to the resurrection, right? Like, this person's a better place right now. Well, that might be true.
But I don't feel
that.
But I don't feel that.
Yeah, exactly. But this is still awful because I want that person with me now. So so the funeral needs to acknowledge, yes, the promise and the good news, but also this hurts. And there is the custom sometimes of wearing black at a funeral, and people say, "Oh, white, you can't wear black. That's so negative," or whatever. But I don't know. People wear black, right, at funerals. Yeah. Sometimes they wear white or pink to honor the person's character, or sometimes if someone died of breast cancer or something, they might wear pink or something to remember that, or whatever. But still, the people have the custom still of wearing black. The black is not to be depressing. It's to recognize the real reality of what's going on. And I have never worn black at a funeral. I think it'd be just outside for most people's experience. But I have worn purple for a funeral, and once, and that was my dad's funeral, because I knew that my dad would appreciate that, because the mourning and the penance and the pray for my soul in purgatory. He said that all the time in his life. He said, "Do not," and my mom says the same thing. Do not canonize me at the funeral. I want you to tell people to pray for me, because I am a sinner and I might need those prayers, and I probably will need those prayers. Please don't forget about me. Pray for me. And that's why I honored my dad wearing purple. to remind that penitential thing, and to remind us to pray for those who have passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the other thing I was going to mention about black also is there used to be the thing in the culture that I think you wore black for a year after someone died. And again, that sometimes doesn't resonate with our modern sensibilities, but it was a beautiful thing. It was meant to be a beautiful thing, because if you're wearing black, that basically said, I get a free pass for a year. Mm-hmm. You don't expect me to be better. You don't tell me get over it. You don't tell me stop crying about it. I'm wearing black, which means I'm in mourning, and I will deal with these emotions for however long it takes. You just leave me alone. That's basically what it meant, and which was beautiful, because so often in our society we say, come on, your dad died a week ago, get over it, move on. It's like, no, I am still mourning. I still feel that I miss him, I'm sad. Mm-hmm. So that was a beautiful custom of wearing black for a year after, I think it was a year, maybe even 2, after someone passed. It was to honor those emotions.
Right, exactly. And to give that person freedom.
Yeah, right.
To experience them.
Yeah.
In that element of like, I don't have to dress well today.
Exactly.
I can put on, my black dress, maybe the same black dress I wore yesterday.
Right.
And my role right now is to lose this person, to mourn this person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is. We're not saying that all those customs have to come back or anything like that, but
right. No. But I'm just
there's
saying
that element. I do think it would be beautiful if in our American society or in our American Catholic Church in some ways, tried to develop better methods of mourning, helping people get through that time, because there may have been some extremism going on. Like there may have been in the early 20th century, or perhaps 19th century, whatever it may have been, an overemphasis on grief and mourning, perhaps in the liturgy, the funeral liturgy, or those sorts of things. But if you go to the other extreme, then you're missing out on that really human part of it.
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It almost never helps to go to the extreme. Almost never helps.
Right. Mm-hmm. Katrina was asking the question, did the eulogy they gave at the cemetery match what you were feeling? I don't know, because I didn't know this family really at all. It kind of came from me out of left field. I'm glad that they did that, because I felt really inadequate at the funeral, and I did not like my homily. I did not like but I didn't want to say anything more, because I didn't feel anything was safe to say, because I didn't know the person at all, and all I knew was from that one person's perspective. And so I'm so glad that family member did the eulogy. Mm-hmm. I wish they would have been there when I asked them to come to the meeting, so I could have gotten that first. So what I do nowadays, if someone really wants a eulogy, the best way for me to do that now is to do that before Mass begins. There has been kind of the custom to do it like after communion. But I find that works best, because again, it's not really part of the liturgy. Sometimes we have visitation beforehand, so the best place they say for a eulogy is at the visitation, because that's when you tell the stories. That's when really the invitation is. You hold a vigil, and sometimes you're up all night telling stories about your loved one, and then you come to the liturgy to send them off and to allow the church to pray for the soul. Mm-hmm. So the proper place for eulogies and telling stories is at the vigil the night before or right before. Mm-hmm. So, but if someone really wants a eulogy at the Mass, the best place for me to do it, and that's what we've been doing at Good Shepherd recently, is to do it right as the Mass begins. I do that for a few reasons. One is because that gets the nerve, if whoever's going to give that eulogy, if they really want that. Again, I don't generally recommend it, but if they really want that, then I do allow it. So that lets them get that off, and so they can focus on the rest of the Mass at that time. It also, I find that often in the eulogy, the person will tell the same stories that they told me whenever I met with them a couple days before. And so if I do the homily first and then they do the eulogy after communion, I have stolen their thunder that they have prepared them to say, because I have used that now in the homily. But if they give it first, I can adjust my homily and say, like so-and-so so beautifully said at the beginning of Mass, talking about her dad or whatever, I can reference that instead of asking that person who probably has less public speaking experience than I do. Not always, but usually, because I do it all the time. I can adjust where a grieving family member might not be able to. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why I do that then. But my hope is that what I can offer at the homily is personal enough that there's not really a eulogy needed, that I have taken all this material, I have applied that to the gospel, and said, this is how God has spoken through this person's life and everything, and this is what the resurrection means for this person. So that's my ultimate goal, that I have done a good job listening, and that I can put together something that is personal and connected to the gospel.
Javine Murray makes a very good point. I've taken a fair amount of psychology in my time, and I haven't been quote unquote trained with the 5-stage degree for Maslow's hierarchy, but I have seen other texts on those. But I think she makes a really good point that students are mourning the loss of their school year. In-person contact with teachers and friends mirrors that of a death. So that brings us to a good topic about what is the definition of mourning. Because some of us may feel dumb or may feel silly for being sad that we lost out on something. We may think that, hey, I shouldn't be mourning this, or a lot of people who have a lot worse throughout the world. How can they can make themselves feel guilty. Like, how can I be sad about not being able to be with my friends for a couple weeks when somebody may have lost their father? But what is important to recognize is that is still true mourning. It may not be the same type of mourning as losing someone, but what is the definition of mourning? My psychology professor in theology, my theology training, defined mourning as the normal process by which someone adjusts to a perception of loss. So now it's a normal process. So mourning is normal. It's something that every person does. It's a process, which means it takes time. And it's in response to a perception of loss. So that means that when you've lost something, you're not only losing that thing, but you're also losing all those other things associated with it. Some losses are perceived as more great, and some are perceived less great. So perhaps you had a better relationship with your mother, and you were much closer to your mother. You may mourn the loss of your mother more than the loss of your father for whatever reason. Because so one person may say, "Oh, I should mourn them equally. They're my parents." Well, no. If your father was estranged from you, and you were away from him for 50 years, you may not mourn him that much when he passes.
Right.
You may, but it's that perception of loss, whatever you're perceiving. And that can extend not only to persons, but it can also extend to things or realities. So students can be mourning the loss of a school year right now. Yeah. And it can be a real loss for them. Yeah. And it's something that they are perceiving.
Yeah, how is that resonating also with you there, Javine? I think that ties in with your profession there, because I don't know what you're doing or what you could share there, but I have no doubt that that's a reality, and especially those that are in those transition years. That's real tough, seniors, 8th graders, all these customs that happen at this time. It's a real difficulty. I'll put another plug in for Some Good News by John Krasinski. It's good if you haven't watched it. This last episode he hosted prom for high schoolers around the nation, which was really, it was really cool, just the way that he's just thinking outside the box and says, well, it's terrible that you guys don't have a prom, so I have no qualifications to do this, except I have a camera, and I know some people, and he brought some people in to DJ, and they had a dance party, and I guess it was just kind of this thing, and there were videos of people dancing in their home, and they got all dressed up in their prom dresses and everything. It was really cool. It's quite beautiful to see those things, and there was a dad dancing with their daughter and everything. It was really kind of touching. So again, that Some Good News by John Krasinski is really good about that. So I think we're trying to respond to many of those things. As a society, not necessarily us, but. But the loss is still real. Again, like a funeral. We try to respond to that, but doesn't take away the hurt. But it makes it gives a little bit of salve anyway.
Do you have any advice for people who are experiencing a loss? Any thoughts? Or?
Do I? Well, I would again Yes. Well, so I knew that, Javine. I didn't know how much. Yeah, so I let you say that. Great. But I don't know. I don't necessarily have any advice. But I would go to the professionals really.
Mm-hmm.
And so Javine, I imagine you're doing a lot of work there.
Yeah, Javine, if you have any tips,
yeah.
I'd love to hear. I mean, I know some of the things that I both experienced and in my life and have seen. I think one of the most important things to do is give yourself permission to mourn. Give yourself permission to experience the loss. Because if you are trying to force yourself not to feel bad, it won't work. Or if it doesn't allow the normal processes to take place. So give yourself permission to mourn. Recognize it's a normal process. Yep. As she says, honor your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Don't discount yourself. If you really feel like you've lost something, and you may think it feels silly. You know, you're saying, oh, it's only my 8th grade year. Why am I so sad? You're still sad. And don't worry. That's
right.
Okay. Give yourself permission to mourn.
Javine, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Thanks for watching.
This is wonderful.
It is. It's great. We are looking, and Father Shawn was here. I don't know if he's still here, but Father Shawn also has a show on his Shawn the Baptist thing. We are wanting to bring him into the show. Javine, it would be really cool if we could like Zoom you into the show or something. You could give some tips. We could do like a Zoom segment. That might be the easiest way for both Father Shawn and for anyone else. If anyone wants to be on the show, let me know. We can do a Zoom thing, and I can do a segment. Again, one of the things that we're trying to do is get other faces and other people talking, because this is great that you're in the comments, but if it might be easier, and if you are willing, you can tell me later, I guess, but
that's put you on the spot.
Not to put you on the spot too much, but we would love to have you on the show, and because you're a professional, I make no claims that I am a psychologist. I have this much training in psychology, I usually say I have enough to do like an initial meeting. I have enough psychology. If someone comes in to me with some difficulty, I have enough psychology training to say, you need to go get help. Here are some basic tips, and now you need to go to a professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, Javine, I'm so happy. We will get you zoomed in. Hi there, Father Shawn. We're going to try to get you zoomed in as well. So that would be great.
Great conversation.
It would be, yeah. Because again, this is our show, I guess, but it doesn't have to be just the two of us. I think the show would be better if we can get more voices. So if anyone wants to be on the show, I have no...
we would love to have you.
Yeah, there's...
We kind of get bored of each other after a while. So.
Maybe you do too.
So hence the bird conversation. Although I'm watching those birds.
This might go down as our weirdest show ever.
We've had a great conversation.
Well, no, it has been good, but just the jump from birds are robots to funerals and mourning. What a spectrum. So yes, let's get you on then. So Javine, let's be in contact, and we'll get you in on there. So yes, let's continue that conversation. Maybe we can do that tomorrow or next week for something, a little special segment. So
absolutely.
We're kind of running out of time.
We are running out of time,
and we have not
funeral coming up too. So
I just need you because we gotta.
Oh, the ash cam.
We have to you have to at least salute people or something.
Salute people
over there on the ash cam, because we have had no appearance at all from the ash cam.
Let's see if we can get one line here.
Give us one line on the ash cam. Mm-hmm. Oh, and while you're getting set up,
this one's great.
While you're getting set up, you can keep looking. Lori over on the tube says that they're doing the 30-day song challenge. It's a chart that they got on the web. Every day is a topic. Today's topic is choose a song from band that you wished was still together. So the 30-day song challenge. I think you can look that up. I don't know anything about it, but she says that daily activity has spurned lots of conversation, memories from the past, soulful thoughts, and laughter. So. Doing a plug for Lori, because I know that my stats say 2 people are watching over on the tube, so you probably don't see that. Maybe if you're watching this, there's 46 eyeballs here. So bats are Bats are birds in the Bible. Yes,
Bats are
according to
birds.
Leviticus. Very good. Thank you, Father Sean.
Are we on the ash cam?
We are on the ash cam.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I was talking to the camera, but you didn't see me. So now we're over in the ash
2
cam.
lines. Or wash thee in Christ's blood, which hath this might, that being red, it dyes red souls to white.
Very good.
There
Lovely.
we go.
So thanks for joining us today let me go back to the cam. The cam. The real cam. Thanks for joining us here on Fireside Chat, and we'll be here tomorrow, 10 o'clock. And thanks for tuning in. And yes, I did enjoy the bird conversation too. I thought it was fun and silly. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.
So much. God bless you all.